What if the key to true happiness lies in the one place you've been avoiding? Your own solitude. In a world that relentlessly drives us toward external validation, constant connection, and endless noise, the concept of being alone often feels daunting, even unnatural. Yet, through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, as shared by daily Buddhist, solitude transforms into a sacred doorway, a portal to self-discovery, inner calm, and unshakable joy. Imagine standing on the edge of a serene lake in the early morning, the water so still it mirrors the sky, reflecting your truest self back to you. That's what solitude offers, a chance to see yourself clearly, free from the distortions of the world's expectations. Take a moment to pause and reflect. When was the last time you sat with yourself, truly present, without reaching for a distraction? In Buddhism, solitude isn't loneliness. It's a profound strength, a quiet rebellion against the chaos of modern life. As the Buddha taught, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. This is an urgent call to turn inward, to shift your energy from seeking outward approval to cultivating inner peace. The impact is immediate. It reshapes how you experience each day, freeing you from the weight of societal pressures and guiding you toward a deeper connection with your own heart. Body. Many see solitude as a shadow to flee from, a sign of failure or disconnection. But in Buddhism, solitude is a radiant light, a strength to embrace. Picture a lone oak tree on a windswept hill in the Scottish Highlands, standing tall against the storm. That tree doesn't need a forest to thrive. Its roots dig deep into the earth, finding nourishment within. Solitude offers you that same sacred space, a chance to step away from the clamor of the world and connect with your inner essence. When you're alone, the noise of social expectations fades, the demands of others dissolve, and you're left with the gentle hum of your own thoughts. I remember a time when I sat alone on a quiet beach in Cornwall, the waves whispering secrets as the sun dipped below the horizon. At first, I felt restless, reaching for my phone to fill the silence. But as I let the moment unfold, I began to hear my own heart. Its fears, its dreams, its quiet strength. That's what solitude does. It invites you to look within, where true wisdom resides. Instead of seeing aloneness as a burden, recognize it as a gift. It's in these still moments that you uncover what truly matters, what brings you joy, what weighs you down, and what sets your soul alight. The more you embrace solitude, the more you cultivate a sense of independence and emotional resilience that no external force can provide. Let's delve deeper into this metaphor of the oak tree. Imagine its branches swaying in the wind, each gust a reminder of life's challenges. Yet the tree remains unshaken, its roots anchoring it firmly to the earth. In the same way, solitude roots you in your own being. It's a space where you can shed the masks you wear for the world and stand as you truly are, unapologetically yourself. For someone like Elena, a nurse from Glasgow, this realization came during a particularly grueling week at the hospital. Overwhelmed by the constant demands of her job, she felt herself unraveling, her energy drained by the need to always be on for others. One evening, she decided to turn off her phone and sit in her small garden, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of lavender. As she sat there, she felt the weight of expectations lift, replaced by a quiet strength she hadn't known she possessed. She began to ask herself questions she'd long avoided. What do I need to feel whole? What fears have I been running from? This act of turning inward is a cornerstone of Buddhist practice. The Buddha himself sought solitude under the Bodhi tree, away from the distractions of the world, to attain enlightenment. Solitude, in this sense, is not an escape but a return to the self, to the present moment, to the truth of who you are. For Elena, this moment in her garden became a turning point. She started carving out time each day to be alone, even if just for 15 minutes, sitting with a cup of tea and watching the clouds drift by. She discovered that solitude allowed her to process her emotions without judgment, to untangle the knots of stress that had built up over years of caregiving. She began to see her exhaustion not as a failure, but as a sign she needed to care for herself as fiercely as she cared for others. This shift in perspective is what makes solitude a strength. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, but about creating a space where you can recharge, reflect, and grow. In Buddhist teachings, this is often linked to the concept of mindfulness, being fully present with yourself, without the need to fill every moment with noise or activity. Try this. The next time you're alone, Resist the urge to distract yourself. Instead, sit quietly and notice your surroundings, the texture of the chair beneath you, the rhythm of your breath, the distant hum of life outside. Then turn your attention inward. What emotions arise? What thoughts bubble to the surface? This simple practice can reveal so much about your inner world, helping you understand your desires, your fears, and your deepest truths. Over time, as Elena found, these moments of solitude build a foundation of emotional resilience, allowing you to face life storms with the same steadfastness as that lone oak tree in the highlands. The most sacred bond you'll ever nurture is the one with yourself. Yet, in a society that glorifies external connection, many of us struggle to enjoy our own company. We've been conditioned to seek companionship, validation, and love from others, forgetting that true joy blooms from within. Buddhism teaches that self-companionship isn't just about being alone. It's about forging a deep, compassionate relationship with yourself. Imagine you're sitting across from a dear friend, someone you'd never judge or criticize. Now turn that kindness inward. Speak to yourself with gentleness, offer yourself patience, and embrace your flaws as part of your journey. Take Maya, a young artist from a bustling city like Bristol. She used to dread evenings alone, filling them with social media or loud music to drown out her thoughts. But one rainy afternoon, inspired by a Buddhist teaching she heard on Daily Buddhist, she decided to sit with herself. She lit a candle, played soft piano music, and began sketching her emotions. Swirls of blue for her sadness, bursts of yellow for her hope. For the first time, she felt at peace in her own presence, realizing that solitude could be a canvas for self-love. Engage in activities that spark joy, whether it's strolling through a park in Oxford, reading poetry by a river, or trying a new recipe in your kitchen. When you choose to spend time with yourself, solitude becomes a sanctuary, not a void. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Are you harsh or are you kind? Practicing mindfulness can transform your self-talk from criticism to encouragement. When you're at peace with your own mind, solitude becomes a space of comfort and growth, not loneliness. The more you enjoy your own company, the less you rely on others to fill an emotional gap. You become self-sufficient, deeply content with who you are. Let's explore Maya's journey further. Growing up in a busy household, she was always surrounded by noise, siblings arguing, the TV blaring, her parents' constant chatter. Silence felt foreign, even threatening. As an adult, this discomfort followed her, manifesting as a need to always be connected, always distracted. But that rainy afternoon in Bristol marked a shift. As she sketched, she began to notice how her inner voice spoke to her, harshly, often echoing the critical tones she'd heard as a child. "You're not good enough. Why can't you be more social?" Inspired by the Buddhist principle of loving-kindness, or metta, she decided to rewrite this narrative. She started speaking to herself as she would to a child, with warmth and understanding. "It's okay to feel sad," she whispered, watching the blue swirls take shape on her paper. "You're doing your best, and that's enough." This practice of self-compassion is deeply rooted in Buddhist teachings. The Buddha often spoke of treating all beings with kindness, and that includes yourself. For Maya, this meant not just sketching, but also creating rituals of self-care. She began taking long walks along the river Avon, noticing the way the water reflected the sky, its surface a mirror for her own emotions. She'd stop at a quiet bench, close her eyes, and breathe deeply, imagining her breath as a warm light, filling her with love. She also started a gratitude journal, writing down 3 things each day that brought her joy, small things like the smell of rain, the laughter of a stranger, or the taste of her morning tea. These practices transformed her relationship with herself, turning solitude into a space of healing. You can cultivate this same self-companionship. Start by setting aside time each day to do something you love, alone. It could be as simple as brewing a cup of herbal tea and savoring it slowly, or as immersive as painting a landscape that captures your mood. As you engage in these activities, notice how you feel. Do you feel lighter, more grounded? Then pay attention to your inner dialogue. If you catch yourself being critical, pause and reframe your thoughts with kindness. For example, if you think, "I'm so boring for staying in tonight," counter it with, "I'm giving myself the gift of rest, and that's beautiful." Over time, as Maya discovered, this practice not only makes solitude enjoyable, but also builds a deep sense of self-love, allowing you to stand confidently in your own presence, no matter the circumstances. Without purpose, solitude can feel like a hollow expanse, leading to restlessness or sadness. But Buddhism teaches that a meaningful routine can turn time alone into a journey of fulfillment. Consider Arjun, a software developer from Manchester, who felt lost after a breakup. He used to spend his evenings scrolling mindlessly, feeling the weight of his solitude. Then, inspired by a daily Buddhist video, he began building a routine rooted in intention. He started each morning with a 10-minute meditation, sitting by his window as the city woke up, focusing on his breath. This simple act brought clarity, helping him face the day with calm. Ask yourself, what inspires me? What makes me feel alive? Reflecting on these questions helps you craft a routine that aligns with your values. Beyond meditation, fill your days with activities that nourish you. Exercise to strengthen your body, read books that expand your mind, or journal to process your emotions. Set small goals like learning to bake sourdough or mastering a yoga pose. When Arjun began writing short stories in the evenings, he found a sense of direction. Solitude no longer felt isolating. It became a space for growth. When your life is filled with purpose, being alone becomes an opportunity to heal and create a life that's truly yours. Let's dive deeper into Arjun's transformation. After his breakup, he felt adrift, as if the structure of his life had crumbled. His evenings, once filled with shared laughter and conversation, now stretched endlessly before him, heavy with silence. He'd scroll through social media, watching others' curated lives, feeling more disconnected with each swipe. But the daily Buddhist video he stumbled upon spoke directly to his heart. Fill your solitude with purpose, and it will become a path to peace. This resonated deeply, prompting him to take action. His morning meditation became a sacred ritual. He'd sit cross-legged on a cushion, the Manchester skyline a soft blur through the window, and focus on his breath, counting each inhale and exhale. This practice, rooted in the Buddhist principle of mindfulness, helped him start his day with intention, rather than reactivity. Arjun also began to explore what truly inspired him. He'd always loved storytelling as a child, crafting tales of adventure for his younger siblings. So he decided to reclaim that passion. Each evening, he'd light a small lamp, sit at his desk, and write. At first, the words came slowly, his inner critic loud. "This is terrible. No one will ever read this." But he remembered the Buddhist teaching of non-judgment, observing thoughts without attaching to them. He let the criticism pass, focusing instead on the joy of creation. Over weeks, he wrote a short story about a traveler in the Peak District, a metaphor for his own journey through loneliness. This act of writing gave him a sense of purpose, turning his solitude into a creative sanctuary. You can build a similar routine. Start by identifying activities that align with your values. Perhaps it's learning a new language, practicing yoga, or volunteering at a local charity. For Arjun, exercise became another pillar of his routine. He started jogging along the canals of Manchester, the rhythmic pounding of his feet a meditation in motion. He also set small, achievable goals. Writing 500 words a day, cooking a new vegetarian recipe each week, or reading a chapter of a book on mindfulness. These goals gave him a sense of direction, transforming his solitude from a burden into a space of growth. Buddhism teaches that purpose arises from intention, and by living intentionally, you create a life that feels meaningful, even in your own company. Try starting your day with a mindful practice, maybe a gratitude list, noting 3 things you're thankful for. Then, fill your hours with activities that nourish your soul, knowing that each step you take in solitude is a step toward inner peace. One of the most joyful ways to embrace solitude is by diving into hobbies that light up your soul. Many tie happiness to social interactions, but Buddhism teaches that true contentment comes from within. When you engage in activities you love, solitude becomes a time of creativity and peace. Think of Lila, a teacher from Edinburgh, who always wanted to learn pottery. She spent her weekends alone in a small studio, her hands shaping clay as the wheels spun. In those moments, time melted away and her mind grew still, a natural meditation. Explore your passions without fear of judgment. Maybe you've always wanted to paint landscapes, play the guitar, or grow herbs in your garden. These aren't just hobbies, they're pathways to connect with yourself. When you're fully immersed in what you love, You enter a state of flow, where worries fade and presence takes over. Buddhism reminds us that joy isn't found in external attachments, but in savoring the present. Hobbies also bring a sense of accomplishment. Finishing a painting or perfecting a recipe builds confidence. When Lila crafted her first vase, she felt a quiet pride, realizing she didn't need anyone else to feel fulfilled. Solitude became a gift, a chance to nurture her creativity and find happiness in the simplest moments. Let's expand on Lila's story to understand the transformative power of hobbies. As a primary school teacher, Lila's days were filled with the chatter of children, the demands of lesson plans, and the constant need to be on. By the time the weekend arrived, she felt drained, her energy sapped by the noise of her work. She'd often spend her Saturdays with friends, hoping their company would recharge her. But she found herself feeling even more depleted. One day, while browsing a local market in Edinburgh, she stumbled upon a pottery stall. The smooth, earthy vases called to her, and on a whim, she signed up for a weekend class. That first session was a revelation. As her hands pressed into the wet clay, the wheel humming beneath her fingers, she felt a stillness she hadn't known in years. The world outside faded, and all that existed was the clay, her breath, and the quiet rhythm of creation. This experience aligns with the Buddhist concept of mindfulness, being fully present in the moment, free from distraction. For Lila, pottery became a form of meditation, a way to anchor herself in the now. She began to look forward to her weekends alone, setting up a small corner in her flat with a second-hand wheel and a bag of clay. She'd play soft music, often the sound of Tibetan singing bowls, and lose herself in the process. She learned to notice the texture of the clay, the way it yielded to her touch, the subtle imperfections that made each piece unique. This act of creation taught her to embrace her own imperfections, too. She realized that just as a slightly lopsided vase could still hold beauty, so could she, flaws and all. Hobbies like these offer more than just enjoyment. They're a gateway to self-discovery. For Lila, pottery also became a way to process her emotions. On days when she felt overwhelmed, she'd shape the clay with more force, letting her frustration flow into the material. On calmer days, her movements were gentle, her creations softer. She began to see her pottery as a mirror of her inner world, a tangible reflection of her growth. You can find similar joy in your own hobbies. Perhaps you've always wanted to try photography, capturing the golden light of a sunset, or knitting, the repetitive motion a soothing rhythm. The key is to choose activities that resonate with you, that allow you to lose yourself in the moment. As Lila discovered, when you invest in your passions, solitude becomes a space of joy, not loneliness, and you cultivate a deep sense of fulfillment that no external validation can provide. Many struggle with solitude because they've become emotionally dependent on others for validation and comfort. Society tells us we need relationships to feel whole, but Buddhism teaches that true peace comes from within. Emotional independence isn't about rejecting connection. It's about being content and resilient on your own. Consider Ravi, a student in Leeds, who felt lost after moving to a new city. He used to call friends whenever he felt lonely, seeking reassurance. But after learning about non-attachment through Daily Buddhist, he began practicing self-awareness. When loneliness struck, he'd sit with the feeling, asking, "Why do I feel this way?" He discovered his fear of rejection was at the root, and by facing it, he grew stronger. Self-soothing is key. Instead of turning to distractions, Ravi started journaling, taking long walks in the Yorkshire Dales, and practicing deep breathing. Buddhism emphasizes non-attachment. Clinging to external validation leads to suffering, but letting go brings freedom. When you spend time alone, you learn who you are without others' influence. What do you value? What brings you peace? The more you build emotional independence, the less you fear solitude. You become resilient, self-reliant, and deeply connected to your inner self, allowing you to form healthier relationships, not out of need but out of love. Let's explore Ravi's journey in greater depth. Moving to Leeds for university was a dream come true, but it also brought unexpected challenges. Far from his family in Birmingham, Ravi felt unmoored, his sense of identity tied to the familiar faces he'd left behind. He'd call his friends back home almost daily, seeking their laughter to fill the emptiness he felt in his small dorm room. But the more he relied on these calls, the more he noticed a pattern. The relief was temporary, and the loneliness always returned sharper each time. It was during a late-night scroll that he found a daily Buddhist video on non-attachment, a concept that struck him like a lightning bolt. The idea that clinging to others for happiness caused suffering made him pause. He decided to face his loneliness head-on, using the Buddhist practice of self-inquiry to understand its roots. Sitting on his bed one evening, Ravi closed his eyes and asked, "Why am I feeling this way?" The answer came slowly like a whisper. A deep-seated fear of rejection, a belief that he wasn't enough on his own. This realization was both painful and liberating. He began to journal, pouring his thoughts onto the page. His fears, his insecurities, his hopes. He wrote about the time he'd been excluded from a school group project, a memory that still stung, and how it had shaped his need for approval. Through this process, he started to see his loneliness not as a void, but as a teacher, guiding him toward self-acceptance. He also took up walking in the Yorkshire Dales, the rolling hills a balm for his restless mind. As he walked, he'd practice deep breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, exhaling for 6, feeling his body ground into the earth. This journey toward emotional independence is a powerful application of Buddhist teachings. The Buddha taught that attachment to impermanent things, whether people, approval, or circumstances, leads to suffering. By letting go, you find freedom. For Ravi, this meant learning to self-soothe in healthy ways. He created a small toolkit of practices. When anxiety struck, he'd play calming music and stretch. When sadness loomed, he'd write a letter to himself, offering the kind words he'd once sought from others. Over time, he noticed a shift. He no longer feared being alone. He began to enjoy his own company, finding peace in simple acts like cooking a meal or reading by the window. This newfound resilience allowed him to approach relationships differently, not as a crutch, but as a choice, rooted in mutual respect and love. You can cultivate this same independence by sitting with your emotions, exploring their roots, and developing practices that bring you comfort, knowing that true peace comes from within. In a world that fears silence, Buddhism sees it as a wellspring of wisdom. Silence isn't empty. It's a powerful tool for clarity and peace. Imagine sitting in a forest near Lake Windermere. The only sound the rustle of leaves and your steady breath. In that stillness, you hear your inner voice, unclouded by the world's noise. Silence allows you to slow down, to listen deeply, not just to the world but to yourself. When you're always surrounded by distractions, your mind grows cluttered, but silence creates space for reflection. Meditation is a profound way to cultivate wisdom through silence. Sit in stillness, observe your thoughts without judgment, and realize you're not your thoughts. You're the observer. This practice brings calm and control. Silence also anchors you in the present, fostering gratitude for the moment, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of your heartbeat. It teaches you to listen to your intuition, where true answers lie. Great Buddhist teachers often retreat into silence to deepen their understanding, and you can too. Even a few minutes of quiet each day can bring clarity. Silence builds emotional resilience, helping you sit with difficult feelings and let them pass. In stillness, you find wisdom, patience, and peace. Let's immerse ourselves further in the scene at Lake Windermere. Picture the early morning mist hanging low over the water, the air cool and crisp, the forest alive with the subtle sounds of nature. A bird's tentative song, the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. You sit on a moss-covered rock, your body still, your mind quiet. This is the power of silence. It strips away the layers of noise that cloud your perception, revealing the clarity beneath. For someone like Priya, a writer from Newcastle, this kind of silence was transformative. She'd always lived in a whirlwind of deadlines and social obligations, her mind a constant buzz of to-do lists and worries. But one weekend, seeking respite, she booked a cabin near Lake Windermere, determined to unplug. At first, the silence was unnerving. She felt the urge to check her phone, to fill the void with sound. But as the hours passed, she began to settle into the stillness, and something shifted. Priya started meditating each morning, following a simple Buddhist practice she'd learned. Sitting in silence, focusing on her breath, and observing her thoughts as they arose. She noticed how her mind raced, worries about her next book, fears of failure, regrets about past decisions. But instead of engaging with these thoughts, she let them pass, like leaves floating down a stream. This practice, rooted in the Buddhist teaching of detachment, taught her that she was not her thoughts. She was the awareness behind them. Over the course of the weekend, she began to hear her intuition more clearly. One morning as she sat by the lake, an idea for a novel came to her unbidden. A story about a woman finding herself through solitude. This clarity, born of silence, became the foundation of her most meaningful work. Silence also fosters a deep connection to the present moment, a core tenet of Buddhist practice. For Priya, this meant noticing the small wonders around her, the way the sunlight danced on the water, the scent of pine in the air, the softness of the moss beneath her. She began to feel a profound gratitude for these moments, realizing that happiness didn't lie in the future, in some distant achievement, but right here in the now. You can cultivate this same wisdom by embracing silence in your own life. Start with 5 minutes a day. Find a quiet space, close your eyes and simply listen. Notice the sounds around you, then turn inward. What do you hear? What do you feel? Over time, as Priya found, silence becomes a source of strength, helping you navigate life's challenges with patience and insight, grounded in the peace of the present. Society often equates happiness with companionship, making solitude seem like a failure. But in Buddhism, true fulfillment comes from within. Building a life that feels whole on your own means finding peace and joy without relying on others. It's about realizing you're already complete, even alone. True wholeness isn't found in external attachments, relationships, achievements, or material things. These are impermanent, and clinging to them leads to fear of loss. Instead, turn inward. Self-acceptance is the foundation of fulfillment. Create a life that reflects your values. Live mindfully, filling your days with habits that nourish your soul, learning, creating, or acts of kindness. Cultivate self-compassion, treating yourself with kindness, even when you falter. Find joy in the present, the scent of rain, the laughter of a child, the stillness of dawn. Let go of the fear of being alone. When you're comfortable with your own company, you gain unshakable confidence. Solitude becomes a sacred space for growth, not emptiness. This doesn't mean rejecting relationships. It means knowing your happiness isn't dependent on them. You're already whole, and everything you need is within you. Let's reflect more deeply on this idea of wholeness. Imagine a mosaic, each piece a different color, shape, and texture, yet together they form a complete, beautiful picture. That's what your life can be when you build it from within. A tapestry of moments, habits, and values that reflect who you are, not who the world expects you to be. For someone like Aisha, a librarian from Cardiff, this realization came after years of feeling incomplete without a partner. She'd grown up believing that happiness meant finding the one, a belief reinforced by every rom-com she watched and every family gathering where she was asked, "When are you settling down?" But after a particularly lonely birthday, she decided to stop waiting for someone else to complete her. Inspired by Buddhist teachings on self-acceptance, she began to build a life that felt whole on her own terms. Aisha started by identifying her values: curiosity, creativity, and kindness. She filled her days with activities that aligned with these principles. She joined a book club, not to meet people, but to dive deeper into her love of literature, spending her evenings alone with a novel, a cup of chamomile tea, and the soft glow of a lamp. She also took up watercolor painting, setting up an easel in her small flat and creating landscapes inspired by the Welsh countryside. These activities weren't just pastimes, they were acts of self-love, ways to honor her own spirit. She practiced self-compassion too, especially on days when loneliness crept in. Instead of berating herself for feeling sad, she'd wrap herself in a blanket, light a candle and whisper, "It's okay to feel this way. I'm here for you." This kindness, rooted in the Buddhist principle of metta, helped her see her worth, independent of anyone else's validation. Living mindfully also meant savoring the present moment, another key Buddhist teaching. Aisha began to notice the small joys in her daily life, the way the morning light filtered through her window, the sound of children playing in the park, the warmth of her tea against her palms. She stopped chasing a future where she'd finally be happy and instead found contentment in the now. This shift released her from the fear of being alone. She realized that relationships, while wonderful, were not the foundation of her happiness. They were an enhancement, not a necessity. You can build this same sense of wholeness by living in alignment with your values, practicing self-compassion, and embracing the present. Start by asking, "What makes me feel alive?" What small act of kindness can I offer myself today? As Aisha discovered, when you create a life that feels complete on your own, solitude becomes a sacred space, and you stand confidently in the truth that you are already enough. If you've ever used mindfulness to find calm in chaos, type 1 in the comments. If you're just starting your mindfulness journey, type 2. You're in the right place. And don't let this moment of clarity slip away. Subscribe now to begin your journey into mindful awareness with Daily Buddhist. Conclusion: living alone isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about deepening your connection to it. When you learn to be at peace with yourself, to release the grip of external expectations, and to embrace the stillness of solitude, you unlock a happiness that nothing can shake. As the Buddha wisely said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. This journey of solitude is a quiet revolution, a return to your truest self, where joy and wisdom have always resided. Reflect on the stories we've shared. Maya, who found peace in her sketches; Arjun, who turned loneliness into purpose; Lila, who discovered joy in her pottery; and Ravi, who learned to stand strong on his own. Their paths show us that solitude isn't a void to fill. It's a space to grow, to heal, and to thrive. To protect yourself from the chaos of the world, embrace solitude as a strength. Shield yourself from the noise by carving out moments of stillness each day. Whether it's a morning meditation, a walk in nature, or simply sitting with your breath, stabilize your energy through mindfulness and self-compassion. When you feel restless or lonely, don't run from those feelings. Sit with them as you would with a friend and ask, "What are you here to teach me?" This practice roots you in the present, where true peace lives. To avoid the negative effects of societal conditioning, like the fear of being alone, fill your life with purpose. Engage in hobbies, set goals, and live in alignment with your values. Let go of the need for validation and instead trust in your own worth. Have you experienced moments of unexpected calm or insight? Share your story in the comments. Your journey could inspire someone else. Let's build a community of peace seekers together on Daily Buddhist. I'll never forget a moment of solitude that changed me. I was hiking alone in the Lake District, the mist rolling over the hills like a gentle wave. I sat on a rock, the world silent except for the distant call of a bird. In that stillness, I felt a profound connection not just to nature but to myself. I realized I didn't need anyone else to feel whole. That moment of clarity reminded me that the wisdom we seek has always been within us. You too can find such moments. Start small, spend 5 minutes in silence today, noticing your breath, feeling the ground beneath you, or take up a hobby that brings you joy, like painting or gardening. These acts of mindfulness are seeds, and with time, they'll grow into a garden of inner peace. Your journey toward peace begins now. Solitude isn't something to fear. It's a gift, a chance to rediscover yourself. As you move forward, carry this truth. You are enough just as you are. The world may be loud, but within you is a quiet strength, a light that no storm can dim. Embrace it, live it, share it. Peace is not found by seeking, but by pausing, breathing, and embracing the present. Click subscribe now. Your path to inner peace starts here with Daily Buddhist. Let's walk this journey together, one mindful step at a time.